What's going on YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled, and today I'm going to be bringing you my Thanatos guide. And before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to keep up with any future content, I will be leaving a link to my Discord and my Twitch in the description below. Now, Thanatos is a very cool god. In all honesty, he was probably the second assassin that I tried to pick up back in Smite 1, and in this game is basically no different. Um, he's easy to use, difficult. I would say easy to use, medium to master. Considering the fact that his highest damaging ability is a skill shot, so being able to hit it at max range is pretty difficult. But since he's a melee god, you're more than likely not going to be using it at full range anyway. But again, either way, this character is amazing. Has an executes, has all you need in an assassin, probably the highest damage output out of the assassins when it comes to early game. Really solid rotation, pretty decent CC, and basically an ult bot late game, making it to where he's probably one of the more valued assassins late game. As usual, we'll be going over everything in order from his passive first, and then going over his abilities in order of least important to most important, and then going over his ultimate. So let's go ahead and get right into it. His passive is twofold. Basically, whenever any enemy god is within execute range, they're revealed to you on the map, and then if you kill them, if you kill an enemy god, it heals you, and it also reduces your cooldowns by 5 seconds whenever you kill an enemy god. You also heal for 15% of the god's max HP, and then you also heal for 7% of the max HP of any NPC you killed. So Gold Fury, Fire Giant, basically basic objectives, and jungle minions. So really high amounts of sustain when it comes to farming, and really good at getting himself back into team fight as long as he gets the final hit on enemy gods. And also his abilities cost health whenever you cast them. Whenever you cast your, I'll go over how much health each ability costs, but whenever you cast an ability, be prepared to sacrifice a bit of your health whenever you're using him. They did change him a little bit in the other game. It was a percentage of your health and mana. Now it's only a cost of your health. So a pretty welcome change, but double-edged sword, since now the abilities cost more health in exchange to be able to use them, but provide a lot more sustain. In order of importance, again, I'm going to be going over the least important, and that would be arguably between his 2 and his 3, but in my opinion, it's definitely the 2. This ability is directly affected by your ultimate and your passive. Basically, it only becomes really potent once somebody reaches the execute threshold. But you become, the basics of it is that you gain a crazy amount of movement speed, and you also gain flat pen. And then against targets that are within the execute threshold, you deal bonus damage to them up to a maximum of 15% bonus damage. Probably one of the better stims in the game when it comes to just pen and movement speed. Since you're completely immune to slows and you gain flat pen, which is always really nice. And now they also gain bonus damage to targets that are within the execute threshold. And I'll be going over where that is later on when we talk about his ultimate. But pretty good nonetheless, but pales in comparison to what the 1 and the 3 can offer you. And now I want to go ahead and showcase his ability. It's really straightforward. He flaps his wings out, and while his wings are purple and the size is purple, you gain this movement speed and you're slow immune. So, and it lasts a pretty long time for a max of 5 seconds. Plus the movement speed and the power you get is going to be a lot more substantial if they're on low health. So if you just check it. And now the execute range. Now your movement speed is increased by a little bit more. And the damage you do to targets, the target that's at low health is going to be increased by a good amount of damage, by about 15%. So this ability is spammable. You can use it sparingly if you're going against a lot of people who have slows. But in most cases, you're going to be popping this way before you even enter a team fight. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about his 3. The 3 really isn't even there for the damage, even though it does do a pretty decent amount at 220 with a 65% scaling. Why it's important is for its utility, however. Basically, Thanatos slices in a cone, and anybody hit by that slice is silenced for a little bit under a second. But an assassin with a silence and all this damage that he has is really nice to have. In most cases, you're going to be using this when you first engage on somebody. That way they can't just immediately use their run move to escape from you. And plus, they did speed up the animation of this ability. So now it comes out slightly faster than it does from Smite 1. So the utility on it is a lot more useful. Okay, now I want to go ahead and talk about his 3 and go ahead and showcase that. Now the cone is pretty wide and goes pretty decently far. And as you can see, does a pretty decent amount of damage and does apply that silence. So spam this ability. And then since I'm going to be going over his best items, be sure to try to get an auto attack in right afterwards. That way you can max out as much damage as possible. Next, I want to talk about Thanatos' 1. Now, it got a pretty significant buff from Smite 1. This is a skill shot ability, and being able to hit this ability in long range is going to make the difference between a good Thanatos and a bad Thanatos. This is his sniping ability. This hits for 270 plus 6, and it has a 60% strength scaling on it, and it applies a 20% slow. What makes this ability so crazy is that it heals for 50% of the damage done, and the enemy takes 10% of their max health as bonus physical damage. This is probably one of the hardest hitting assassin abilities in the game because of basically because of the health damage that it does and the how much damage it does at the beginning of the game. So this is definitely going to be the first ability that you're going to level and going to be a staple for Thanatos to be able to hit. And now this is the showcase for his 1. As you can see, it goes really far, but the ability range on it is pretty, or the width on it is pretty narrow. So hitting this from max range is going to be a little difficult because there is a little bit of a trial time. It's not instant. As you can see, it does take a little bit of a time to get to the enemy god if casted at max range. So it is a pretty potent sniping ability. But since you're going to be engaging right about here anyway, you're just going to pop this and immediately hit somebody with it. So most Thanatoses will probably wait until they're about right here to throw it anyway. But good Thanatoses will be able to hit you at poking range at about this distance. So play around with this. Try to hit those snipes, those clips. But don't be afraid to get up close and personal and just throw his ability out since it has a massive amount of sustain on it. And then finally, I'm going to talk about his ultimate. The ultimate known as Hovering Death. This is leveling this ability is going to be crucial for it directly tying into your passive and your 2. Basically, as this ability levels up, the execution threshold for this ability goes up. So at level 1, it's 24% of if they're at 24% health, and then at max rank, if they're at 40% health, this ability will insta-kill. But even if you don't use it as an execute and you just use it for its utility, it still does pretty decent amount of damage at 250 with 80% damage scaling. And why this ability is still pretty good to use outside of the execute is the fact that it has a stun. So it's a very good tank killer, it's a good kill confirm, and it's a good engaging ultimate. Since they'll be stunned, which will leave them open to both your 1 and your 3. So use this ability ultimate as you see fit. Don't be afraid to use it as an engager on the mids or the dual lane, and don't be afraid to use it as an execute as well. Late game, you're probably going to be using this ultimate just to execute the tanks to make everybody's lives a little easier. Or you're going to be using it as the head engaging ability, and you're going to be the primary diver, even though you're going to be pretty squishy. But late game, use this ability sparingly, but don't be afraid to use it for just a CC. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and showcase this ability. Pretty easy to understand. Your CC immune while this ability is casting, but there is a pretty long casting time. So even though you can use this as a really great escape tool, keep in mind you're going to be a sitting duck while the ability is casting. So don't try to use this when you're already 1 HP. Use this the second you feel like you're in danger or the second you're thinking about going in. But as you can see, pretty long casting time. you can stay up here for a little bit, and once that circle hits 0, then you come crashing down. You can use the ability early, so you don't have to wait for the cast to be completely finished. So if you just go up into the air, and then whenever somebody's within your circle, you just immediately press 2, or right click for you PC players, and then you'll immediately land on top of the enemy god that you're hitting, or the enemy god you're trying to target. This can hit multiple people if they're standing pretty close together, but in most cases they're not, because they want to try to stay away from each other as much as possible. That way they can CC lock you once you come in. So use this ability when somebody's not looking at you, and try not to be too predictable with this. And now finally, I want to go ahead and go over his best builds and items. Most of the time, you're going to be running him out the jungle. Again, Bumba's Cudgel. Bumba's Golden Dagger is nice, but in most cases, you're going to be building this Cudgel. Especially since it gives him true damage, and you're going to be building Hydras on this character. This is his definite go-to. You can flex him in solo. I wouldn't really recommend it. He is a jungler through and through, but you can run him in solo. And if you're not going to build Bumba's Cudgel and you're going to go solo, Blue Sun Pen if you're going to go full damage, Warrior's Axe if you're going to try to build a little bit tanky. After that, the items you build is completely up to is very dependent. Since you're not really going to be, you don't really have any mana, building Transcendence is really not going to be, you know, usable for you. So don't build this item since you have no mana pool. Build this item, you look dumb. It's like building mana on Kukulkan in Smite 1. But anyway, first card you're going to build is going to be Jotun's Revenge. Card is way too good, gives you 20 cooldown rate. And then whenever you get a kill or an assist, your non-ultimate cooldowns are reduced by 2 seconds, and your ultimate is reduced by 6. And this does pair with this passive, where if you kill somebody, your cooldowns are already reduced by 5 seconds. So getting a kill with this, your cooldowns are going to be reduced by 7 seconds, which will basically, you get a kill, you're right back in the fight and go on the next person. After this card, you're going to want to build Hydras. This ability makes your next auto hit harder. Yeah, I know it has mana, but you're mostly building it for the passive, and this does stack with the Bumba's Cudgel, so it's going to make your autos hit incredibly hard. After this, I would recommend probably building into Serrated Edge. Gives you 10% pen, 15% lifesteal, 20 strength. And then after using an ability, you gain Cruelty, which will give you lifesteal and more strength, making you hit even harder. After this, I would recommend either building Crusher or building Heartseeker. More cases than not, you're probably going to be building Heartseeker, since it is your only way to do extra health damage, and this does stack with your 1. So this dealing extra HP damage based off your strength, and then your 1 already doing health damage because of their max HP, your ability is going to hit extremely hard. Crusher just for the extra tick damage and cooldown and pen. And then finally, I would recommend either Titan's Bane to give you a whopping 25% penetration, Brawlers for the extra anti-heal, but those are basically going to be your go-tos. You can troll and do a crit build, so you would still basically start the same. You would go Jotuns and then Hydras, and then you would immediately just build every single crit item. Probably not every single crit item. You'll probably build Musashi's and Deathbringer, and then maybe Demon Blade, and then your last card that you're going to build is probably like Heartseeker to make your abilities hit harder. But that build can be pretty useful, and I'm going to go ahead and showcase it now. With just a standard build. So if you go this, you go Jotun's Revenge, you go Hydras, you go Serrated Edge, you go Heartseeker, you go Crusher, and then you either go Titan's Bane or Brawlers. Me personally, I'm going to go Titan's Bane since his burst is so high anyway. So you're going to want to auto-cancel with this god a lot. Basically what that means is after casting an ability, you want to immediately throw an auto-attack before throwing your next ability to max out your damage. So in this case, I'll go ahead and set the bot to 20. Give me 1 second. Okay, so what you want to do is, if you're going to engage with your ult, you're going to pop your 2, auto, 3, auto, 1, and they're dead. And as you can see, the cooldowns basically reset to 0 with this build. So if you use all your abilities, you can see that they're on a fairly long cooldown. Even with all the CDR, it's still roughly about 5 to 8 seconds. But if you kill them quick enough, which in most cases you will, all your abilities are basically off cooldown. And then if you're gonna ult in, you want to do this. Auto 3, auto 1, and they're dead. And you basically just have to walk out for free. So he hits incredibly hard late game and still hits hard early. And then I'm going to go ahead and showcase what the crit build looks like. So if we sell everything, you're basically going to still start the same. And then you're going to go into crit. You're going to get Musashi's, then Deathbringer, and then probably Demon Blade if you want the extra crit and attack speed. And then finally for your last card, more than likely you're probably just going to build into Heartseeker just for the extra ability damage. There you go. And then you're going to do basically the same concept. You're going to do auto cancel, so you're going to pop your 2. As you can see, it's not as potent, but still can hit fairly decently hard, especially after the ultimate if you're going to kill. This is more of a troll build. You're really not going to be using this as much, but you can rock this if you want to. But the better build is definitely the other build, since it has so much more pen and can cleave through squishies a lot quicker. And that's going to be it for my Thanatos video. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching, and y'all take care.